right, we'll start the meeting. My name is Bill Keogh. I've been around for a long while. I'd like to introduce self-introductions by our steering committee. Joe? Mojo? And Andy just spoke, yep. Okay.
Ben Travers.
Oh, that's right, hi Ben. Didn't see you sneak in. All right. We also have Councilor Shannon in the audience tonight. Thank you for coming to both meetings. The first portion is an open forum. Does anyone here want to talk about anything that's bugging them or anything that you'd like to share with the meeting for the next 10 minutes? Mojo? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm Larry Lewak. I'm a longtime resident of Caroline Street, and I am here to speak to the proposed Downtown Improvement District charter change. I want to tell you, those of you who haven't had the time to study what's been put on the table, that this is a half-baked or maybe a quarter-baked idea, would be a better way to put it. The basic concept is to dissolve the current functions of the Marketplace Commission and District and fold those functions into a new private nonprofit entity whose assets and decision-making authorities will not, underline, will not be subject to public scrutiny and accountability and transparency in the same way that the Marketplace District is today. This proposal basically represents an attempt to privatize public assets to the detriment of the interests of stakeholders in the downtown Marketplace District. It's a really bad idea, and I would encourage you to learn more about it. I'm going to be participating with former City Attorney Gene Bergman in a Channel 17 show about it, so you can probably look that up at some point in the next few weeks. It's something that really should never have made it to the ballot because it has not been properly vetted. The details have not been figured out. And anybody who tells you otherwise is probably blowing smoke.
Question?
Yes?
I don't have cable. Is this going to be online, like streamed?
I believe so. I think most of Channel 17 content is streamed online.
Including this meeting?
Yeah, I will. Oh, it's the same one. Okay, perfect.
Larry, can I tack something onto that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
For the, the City Council this needs to be voted on the ballot. So this needs to be, because it's a charter change, it needs to be on the ballot and passed by voters in order to go into effect. To get on the ballot, they have to have a public hearing at City Council meetings. I think it's going to be January 28th, but it might be the next one, which is January 22nd. But this would be a very good thing because after you've educated yourself, as Larry suggested, a good thing to speak to your city councils about and to come to the city council open forum period and public forum and express your opinion during the public hearing. Joan, do you know the answer to that question? When that's
which day?
When the DID is going to be on the city council agenda?
I thought it was going to be January 28th, but I would not swear my life on that.
I think that's the last date you can put items on the ballot, 27th or whatever that Monday is.
Yeah, I don't know that we have. Do we know? I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I don't know that we've committed to specifically.
Oh. Anyone else? Mojo.
So I'm Mohammed Jafar. I am actually a candidate for City Councilor right here in the South District. I grew up here. I came here when I was about 7 years old. Actually, my family migrated from Kenya to the refugee settlement program. And I grew up here. I went to Champlain Elementary School, Edmonds Middle School, graduated from Burlington High School in 2014, left for college. Came back, and there's a lot of issues that I saw growing up that still persist. And I want to get involved to address some of those issues. Affordable housing is a big one for me. The opioid epidemic that's happening in our backyard is another huge one for me. And homelessness, those are like three biggest things that I really wish that we could address with more force and aggression. And for that reason, I want to get involved to address some of those things. So I just wanted to introduce myself to you as someone who wants to come in and address those issues. And I think we can. We do have the capacity in the city of Burlington, and we do have the resources to address address those things, I think we're just slow on Princeton. So I want to get involved.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alicia?
My name's Elisa Nelson. I'm the current ward clerk for the elections in Ward 5, and I'm running for re-election. So hopefully I have I'm sure you as well have a petition to have people sign if you're willing to just get our names put on the ballot. So I appreciate your help.
Alicia runs a good team. Go ahead, sir.
This is super dry, but I was at the Burton thing, and they mentioned an asset tax and how they don't like it or whatever. I don't know what that is. Does anyone know what that is? That
John?
Most communities in Vermont had an asset tax, and so it's on the machinery. So the manufacturing business would have not only a tax on their real estate and a tax on their income, but a tax on their machinery. And what's happened is most, if not all, have eliminated that tax now, and we still have it. And the result, it's kind of one thing when it's a level playing field, and no matter where you go, you're going to have to pay this tax. But now we're really the only ones that have people paying this tax, and so it creates an environment where, a lot of these companies have multiple locations, and so they're moving their equipment to the other location outside of the city, which also moves the jobs that go with that piece of equipment to a location outside the city. So the city is somewhat dependent on that tax revenue, and somebody's going to have to, if the businesses aren't paying that, it has to be made up in our budgets by other taxpayers. And so we have put together a way for us to kind of phase out the asset tax, because we can't really go to cold turkey without it, but it seems to be working against our interests to keep businesses and equipment in Burlington.
That will be on the ballot, as well as the
Yes.
DID issue, and we'll discuss that at our February meeting. We'll have time set aside for each one of those items to be discussed. Anyone else? Kirsten.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Merriman Shapiro. I live in Ward 5, but I'm also here tonight on behalf of the Community and Economic Development Office for the City of Burlington. By show of hands, does anybody know what the Moran plant is? There's some reluctant hands in the back. Yes. Okay, well, I've got some handouts, so maybe we could get these kind of going around here. Here. Okay, well, you might say, why are you talking to me about the Moran plant, Kirsten? Well, because the City Council and the Mayor has asked us to look at the site to see what type of resolution could happen with the site. And we went to them in December with some information, and they thought it had maybe some merit, asked us to go back to the Parks, Arts, and Culture Committee of the City Council, of which Councilor Shannon is one of the 3 members on that committee. And we'll be having a meeting devoted solely to talking about the Moran plant and what might be next for it. And that will be January 30th at 6 p.m. in Contoy Auditorium down at City Hall. So the whole meeting's devoted to that. I think it's a really good opportunity to learn more about the project. There's good information on this handout. There's a link to the website. The comment function was down at the end of the day, and I'm not the IT person, so don't leave a comment tonight, but tomorrow it should be up and running again. And then if you had any other questions, I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight, but I'd be happy to entertain anything.
Sure. Any questions for Kirsten?
Here's one question.
Yeah.
My understanding is that one of the reasons for this is because actually demolishing the entire site would be more expensive than the concept that's out here. Is that the case, and do you have rough numbers as to what just raising the entire building and opening up sort of open space down there would be versus the concept that's here? I know we can hear more about it.
We do. Yeah, we do. And one of the things that's on, if you go to the webpage, we did, in March of last year, we actually commissioned a study that would look at what it takes to demolish the building. We hired qualified environmental professionals who could look at it from the brownfields aspect of it, because it was a power plant using coal for many years. And those range from about $4.5 million to $10 million. And the building is tall, but it's not big. So you get less than 2 acres of like space. Another thing that we looked at is all of the regulatory requirements about taking the building down. If we were to take the building down, we wouldn't be able to build a new building that close to the waterfront, and we certainly wouldn't be able to build a building of that size on the waterfront or that tall. So those are some of the considerations as we started to look at that. And the range, there are 4 scenarios that we looked at, particularly with demolition. One is to take the building down to the foundation, which sticks up about 18 inches to 2 feet above grade. The other is to take the foundation below grade. The third is to take it down to the first level of basement, and the fourth is to take everything out of the ground. There are several sub-basements. That building goes down to 85 feet sea level. So there's a lot there that you don't see as well as what you see above. So that is one of the reasons. We also, through the ballot question that was passed in 2014, we could utilize these funds to stabilize the site and for demolition. So this is looking at partial demolition and stabilization of the site, and I really hope people are interested enough to come learn more about it and then have some conversations with us about what they think about the idea and the like.
So is the $4.5 million?
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Does $4.5 million, that leaves the foundation, right?
Yes, it leaves the foundation in place. So yes. So.
Paul, you had a question?
I just wondered, since this is a bit of a surprise to me, although I heard about it a while back. The TIF was set up to do a certain thing, right? Mm-hmm. Not very specific, maybe, when the ramp I was talking about, but it was definitely set up for something specific. And this seems like quite a change. Not that I'm opposed to it or anything, but do you see other people being opposed and there'd be lawsuits and so on that say, hey, wait, you redirected money on this?
Oh, I don't think so. And that's why I've included the actual ballot language that we think actually goes to that point. And I'll just say here, this is excerpted. So the first part of the ballot question was about the renovation project that was known as New Moran Inc. Okay? But this part was, if New Moran Inc. didn't advance, that the City Council, if they determine that the proposed project cannot be reasonably accomplished, the City Council shall be authorized to utilize tax increment funds from the district to pay indebtedness, direct or related costs for the demolition of the Moran building and site stabilization in accordance with public trust. And so that's really what we're looking at, is it's a mix of demolition and so we're not completely demolishing it because we think it has some opportunities for the future. So we want to see if other people are excited about it. So,
and there's a compelling reason. They have to spend that $5.9 million they have by the end of this year.
And if we don't, then most of that money goes back to the state and it won't be utilized for anything, creating an asset in Burlington. And if you want me to send you like an email invite to the meeting, I'll pass around a sign-up sheet.
Good. Thanks, Kirsten.
Thank you.
One of my favorite city employees. Anyway, okay.
That's because he's one of my favorite city councilors. Nothing bad on you, John.
Okay, we have the schedule here tonight. We're sort of. Oh, I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
I'm also with CEDO. My name is Kirsten. This is our 7th annual event that we're doing for Dr. Martin Luther King at ECHO. This is a day-long event, and it is no charge. We're providing transportation from Integrated Arts Academy and Sustainability Academy on a rotating loop. And this is an event that we are really focusing on sharing about restorative practice, and we have workshops that are going to be happening. That is by the Abenaki Circles of Courage, and then also Peace and Justice. We have a great performance that's lined up with youth spoken word poets, VHS dance team, and also choir from like the different elementary schools. And in addition, there's going to be a workshop that's really focused on restorative practice in schools and how we are really like applying this, and also really looking at reducing school to prison pipeline. So hopefully that you can come and let people know about this. It's a fun day. If you can't come to this, then I would highly encourage you to check out UVM, Champlain College, the Greater Multicultural Center, because they have amazing events set up with like current civil rights and past civil rights leaders too, because this day really is about educating ourselves and just really, like, it's a day off, but it's not a day off. So I'll leave this here for you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's go to our schedule. Our schedule is outlined here. We'll try to stick to it. Our first speaker is Jake Cornfeld. Jake, you want to come up and speak in the microphone in the Channel 17 audience? First our folks here.
I feel way too official. Hey everybody, so my name is Jake Cornfeld. I work for Salvation Farms. We are a nonprofit trying to build resilience in Vermont's food system through surplus management. So we work with all the food that farmers can't sell and try to get it into the community to folks who need it. One of the ways that we do that is through a surplus crop food hub that we created in Winooski. So what we're doing is we're bringing food from farmers all over the state, and we're quality assessing it and making sure it's safe for people and packaging it into something that's useful, and then sending that out to places like the Vermont Food Bank or the Chittenden Emergency Food Shelf. So think about, an 800-pound bin of carrots from a farm, and all the tips are snapped off, so they can't sell them, but it's still good food. We go through all of that, put it into little 3-pound bags that a family can take home and cook for dinner. That's just a nice simplification of one of the things we do. I'm mostly here because our labor force to do that work is a job training program for community members with barriers to employment. So we define that really broadly. It's anybody who feels like they're having a hard time getting or keeping a job, and they are you giving me 5 minutes now, or is that on deck?
No. 5 minutes to no, go ahead. Continue.
I can do it in 5 minutes anyway.
No, keep going.
Sweet. So, yeah, so we run this job training program for anybody who feels like they are kind of having a hard shake right now. We work with people in recovery, people returning from incarceration. We work with single moms who have been out of work for a while, people who are a little older maybe, have had one career and need a career change and find that they don't have the skills they need to do something different. So really anything that someone defines for themselves as a barrier to employment, they're eligible for this program. I wanted to come to you all because I figure the folks who show up to NPA meetings are generally connected to the community and might know somebody who could use a hand up. So we're starting our next group in 2 weeks on January 30th. So I've got some flyers here. I'll just leave them on the table. If you know anybody who you think could be interested, please pass the information along. It's a 16-week-long program. We do pay people, so you can either receive minimum wage to do the program for every hour you work. It's 30 hours a week through the Department of Labor, or folks can receive a stipend that's calculated to be low enough that it doesn't interfere with your benefits if you're receiving public assistance, but high enough that you can have a little bit extra spending money and feel like you're working for something. We really try to be as accommodating as we can and make this a low barrier opportunity. So if you have childcare needs, or if you have to meet with your PO, or you have treatment or something like that, we can do whatever we can to help you work around that and figure out, in 4 months, how are you going to work full-time somewhere and be able to meet your needs. We've had really great success with placing people in sort of dignified, sustainable employment. I think, right now, 5 of our past 22 graduates are not working, so I should frame that positively. 17 out of 22 folks are working right now. We see people working at places like Rhino Foods and Ben & Jerry's, so sort of food manufacturing, which is directly related to what they're doing. We also see people doing things like meal prep for the schools. We have somebody working for the Burlington School District right now, another person doing food at King Street Center. And then other folks are off doing cleaning jobs or childcare, or, it's really whatever interests you. So this is supposed to just be an on-ramp back into employment for anybody who's looking for it. There's a lot of cool details of the program. I think we've put together a pretty good package for folks, so if you're curious to learn more, please reach out. And then I also want to plug that we're always looking for volunteers. So this is hands-on work. It's pretty fun. It's with a team. We listen to music, have a good time, work with vegetables. And the more hands we have, the more food we can put into the community. So if you're ever interested in volunteering, we are connected with City Market's member worker program. So you can get your volunteer hours and get a discount here. And there's an online sign up, so you can go to salvationfarms.org/get-involved, or you can check out City Market's member worker page and find our sign up sheet. I think that's all I got for now. Anybody's questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So we're in Winooski. We are right off of East Allen Street. So if you know where VSAC is, we're just up the hill from there. We are right off the number 2 bus line. So if you know anybody who might be interested who doesn't have a car, it's super easy to get to on public transit. We can help folks with bus passes. Yeah.
Andy?
Jake, what how big an area, so this is gleaning, yeah?
Of sorts, yes.
And how big an area do you cover in terms of the farms where you get your food?
Yeah, so this program in particular covers the entire state. So we do have Salvation Farms is the organization I work for. This is the Vermont Commodity Program within Salvation Farms. So our food hub services farms all over the state. So we work with Pete's Grains and Craftsberry and Chappelle's Potatoes and Berry and, you know, farms down in southwestern Vermont too. And we're working with really large volumes of surplus. And then there are regional gleaning organizations. The Intervale has a gleaning group. We have a gleaning group around Morrisville area. And those sort of serve more local sites.
One more question?
I have the same question.
Oh, okay.
So that was
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, right on. Thank you all for your
Appreciate
time. I
showing
appreciate the opportunity. And these will be up here, I
up.
suppose.
You were correct. 5 minutes. You're doing your job. We have a
Thank you
timer
guys.
here.
Back on track. Yeah.
Mike Fisher, the school board, is right here.
And Commissioner Wick as well.
Oh, yes.
I always bring my buddy along.
Absolutely. Just remember, we got a timer here, folks.
Thanks, Bill. We don't need much time.
Oh, you're a lawyer, so I don't know.
I have no right. It's kind of.
Were you going to
my
use
field.
this?
Oh, I got you.
Mike,
Joe,
Mike,
you're gonna
he's
use-
our
you're gonna use
technologist.
No, I think
Just
not.
page, I can
If
throw-
I'll get out of the way. That's what I'm saying.
it worked, we'll give the mouse a little. Yeah. Okay. So hi, I'm Mike Fisher. I'm the Ward 5 School Board Commissioner.
I'm Jeff Wick, the South District School Board Commissioner.
We're going to talk to you tonight about two things. One is the FY20 school budget, and the other is the contract with the BEA. Kind of spoiled the surprise. So the school board just on Monday agreed to a budget for FY20. We needed to do this before, to put it on the ballot for town meeting day. In general, just before I go into some of the specifics, the current budget is 85 million. The new proposed budget is 88.7 million, and that's a 4.36% increase year on year. So what we did is the board has a lot of new members compared to the prior year. The prior year also had some limitations due to some state politics, let's just call it, and restrictions. So what the board this year really looked at is, where do we get our bang for our buck? Where is the money best spent? Because there's a lot of things that the administration put forward, and they had a pretty good process for taking input from staff, funneling it through the building leaders, the principals, and the program leaders. And there was a lot of good asks. And so our job is to figure out how much do we think that the voters will support, and what do we think is a priority. And what the board really coalesced on was putting resources earlier in education is a bigger bang for the buck. And that's based on a lot of research that putting resources and attention to kids, the earlier is the better. And we often talk about the achievement gap, the difference between the kids who academically, socially, and emotionally are having the toughest time and the kids who are doing the best. And that difference is called the achievement gap. And once the achievement gap opens early in the grades, it is very hard to close. I was talking to Noel Green, who's the BHS principal, and I said, what do you need from the board? That's what I've been asking all the principals. What do you need? And where should we, and he said, close the achievement gap before they get to high school, because when they get to high school, it's too late. So I think every board member was focused on that. And so a lot of things that you'll see here are around those early years. The other thing that we focused on were social and emotional supports. It's not just enough to do the academics. Kids are coming into early education, early school, elementary school, with so much going on in their lives that it's impossible for a kid to focus on learning math when they're not getting a breakfast in the morning, or they're coming with trauma, right? Years of trauma. Whether they're coming, like your family came from overseas, coming from a refugee camp, which we have plenty of in Burlington, or other types of trauma. The opioid crisis is hitting families. So these kids are coming in and they're not ready to learn. My mom was an elementary school teacher for decades, and she said every year it got harder and harder to teach the academics, that more and more of her time and effort was on the social and emotional supports. So the board, again, you'll see a focus on that, especially in the earlier grades. All right, with that, I'm gonna just throw this up there and we can kind of run through and then I'll open it up for questions. This is a preliminary document. This is the one that we use to make our decision. Not all of the financial numbers are solid. There's a lot of information we don't know yet that's coming from outside the district, like I can get into school budgeting, mathematics, but it is so boring. The yield, the common level of appraisal, there's all sorts of stuff that we are still waiting for. But the scenario that we talked about, average class size, we get that question a lot. Less than 20 at the elementary schools, about 23 in the middle school, and about 19 at the high school. The mention here about baseline growth, if we do nothing, if we don't change any programming just due to the increase of costs in the economy, the budget, we would need to fund an additional $2.2 million. No changes in programming. We did do, I think, a responsible job of looking at reductions, right? So it's not just about adding to the budget, it's what are we doing this year that we can do without next year? And so we spent a lot of time looking at the coaching model in the district. So a lot of resources were shifted from a program called interventionists to coaches this year. The coaches work with teachers to try and maximize their efficacy in the classroom. And we decided to shift some resources away from the coaching model. And so 3 behavior coaches are eliminated in FY20 budget. We eliminated 2, I think both of these are contractors. The contract principal substitute and the administrative projects coordinator, I think are both contractors, is that right?
Well, they're administrative roles.
Yeah.
And we decided that together with the superintendent, he proposed it, that could be a cost savings. There are other ways we can address those needs.
And then there was an additional $500,000 in non-instructional spending. There's a whole slide on that. If you're interested, it's on where we post all our meeting agendas. We can dive into that. So that's a total of about 800,000. So here are the additions, and they add up to, I think our chair added up something like 21 instructional positions. So these are positions that provide the direct instruction to students, not back office. That was really important to the board as well. So we have things like an additional English language teacher. We have additional teachers at BHS. This one, I'm not going to go through the list one by one. This you can see is pretty high cost. Kindergarten paraprofessionals. So these are individuals, they don't have a teacher's license, but they help out in the classroom. Every classroom had paraprofessionals a couple of years ago, and they were cut when the budgets got pretty lean. And we heard from a lot of staff and a lot of parents that this made a big difference. Imagine being a kindergarten teacher with 22 kids in the class, some of whom kids who've never been in a class, who've not been to daycare, that don't know how to control themselves, and having to deal with 22 kindergartners. And when one kid, they call them dysregulates, right? The kid just can't control themselves. And now what do you do with the rest of the class? Or you want to differentiate your learning. So some kids are ready at a higher reading level than others. as a single adult in the room, how do you manage that? So adding these kindergarten pairs back in, we think was super important. This is, I think, we've been talking about, the original proposal was for more than this, but we said.
It was for one for each class, but we don't have enough money for that. So we're doing 9, and we have how many kindergarten classes?
16?
6 elementary schools times 2 is 12. 12 to 16 kindergarten classes. But we're going incrementally here.
Other things like retaining a 2-day, all-day preschool classroom. Again, earlier is better. We had a grant for these 2 classrooms, and that grant ended. We deal with that a lot of grants that are ending. Let's see, some other things to highlight. Additional sports at the high school level. I got an amazing number of feedback around ultimate frisbee. This is a co-ed team that was state champions, I think, the last 2 years. And the amazing thing that I learned about this is there's no referees. The kids self-referee this game, and if it gets out of hand, they stop the game and they get together in a circle and figure it out. So it's low barrier to entry, right? Not a lot of equipment. The frisbees are not, I don't think, as expensive, although I'm sure someone's got expensive frisbees. Let's see, something else. Guidance counselor at the middle school with an emphasis on English language, English learner students. Right now, each middle school has 1 guidance counselor. That's like 400 to 1 ratio. And so we're, again, incrementally adding where we think that kids need that support. If it's not necessarily academics, it's other kinds of support. Middle school health and ed, sex ed, there's 1 that's split in the middle school now. And so there's time wasted for that teacher that has to shuttle back and forth between Hunt and Edmonds. And there's plenty of programming for this teacher to do, right? This is middle school. I don't know if you remember it, but it is a tumultuous time. I have 1 middle schooler right now. Another thing to highlight is the north-south bus. So Burlington has school choice. You are allowed to, when you're going to the district and placing your kid, to pick which school you want your kid to attend to, assuming that there's availability and there's capacity. If you don't have a car or you're not able to drive your kid, there is a bus from the south side of the city north. So if you want to send your kid to, let's say, the magnet schools, or you want to send them to the New North End, you can do that. But it's not available if you're in the New North End to, let's say, come down to Champlain. So we thought that was not equitable. So this is to establish, we're really trying to look at the district as, yes, each school has its own flavor, especially and its own culture, especially the magnet schools, but in general, we're trying to look at the system. Where does the system have the needs? Other money, big ticket items, special education teachers with behavior management expertise, elementary school social workers, and sad to say, we have to put money in. We want to design a new security system for the whole district, right? So that schools are connected, so that when if something happens, that we can respond appropriately. This is just the design work, but this is unfortunately necessary in today's United States. So what does this mean? And I'll just pause and we'll go into some questions. But what does this mean? It's a 4.36% increase when you're talking about the budget year to year. What does this mean for taxpayers? Based on the information we had on Monday, it's a 4.06% increase for property tax owners who pay the full property tax. And with that, I will
translate that into pennies. How many pennies on the tax rate?
I need a calculator and a mathematician. If your tax is $1,000, it's $4. Okay. No, it's 40. See, this is why. Yeah. Yeah. If your tax is $5,000, then it's $200?
It's $40 for every $1,000 evaluation of your house, your property.
It's a 4% increase based on a 200, I think the median value is like 250?
250,000.
250,000 is usually the median,
Yeah.
right? So if you have a $250,000 valuation on your house, your taxes will go up 4.06%. Now, that number is absolutely not for sure. Last year, that number when the board did the budget was 7.99%.
Yep, at this time last year, we anticipated taxes, the education portion of the tax bill, I hate to say this, but going up 7.99%. Great news when I got my tax bill and did the math, 3.3-ish%. Maybe Joan could correct me, but it's 3.3. So it turned out much less than we'd hoped. We hope that it'll be less, but it could be more. We just don't know, but we'll get better information as the state releases a couple more bits of data to us.
And it's never really finalized until all the budgets around the state are done. If you're really interested in public education funding, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of video out there, and I can tell you, we can try and explain what we know. It is super complicated, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but basically, we're asking you, based on the number of the budget, which is going to be $88.7 million, without knowing for sure what it means to your pocketbook.
And that's every year. I mean, we're asking
year.
that same ask every year. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to pause and shut up and answer some questions.
Yeah, the first one right there, additions. What's that, please?
So this,
money for one person.
Yep, so PBIS and RP, these are frameworks for helping kids increase their ability to manage themselves and manage their relationships with other kids. So PBIS is positive behavior
Interventions and supports.
Thank you. And RP is restorative practices. So PBIS does things like a classroom, when they do something well, will get, like at Champlain, they'll get a champ card. And if they get a certain number of champ cards, they get to choose a special event, like they get to wear pajamas for a day. And so it's reinforcing positive behavior and things like morning meetings. And so they've been using PBIS for a while. And restorative practices, the district has invested heavily in over the last 2 years. This is a way of building relationships and trust with things like restorative circles and other techniques. So we definitely heard from teachers that they like the idea, and some of these really work, but they need help in implementing it. And we've heard from parents who say, I like the idea, but when my kid got involved, it didn't seem like they did it right. So this is bringing someone into the district. We have been contracting with, who's it, South Burlington Social Justice, Rachel Jolly. So we've been contracting with outside people to help us, but we think that there's enough work across the whole district to hire someone to do this.
So when you say coach, the coach is coaching the teachers.
Correct.
And so it's distributed around the whole
District. And I think that's a fully loaded number. That would definitely be a more experienced teacher. At 100, we don't actually pay any teachers 100,000 or coaches. I think that must be fully loaded with their benefits and things like that.
I wanted to make a correction. Rachel Jolly's with the Burlington Community.
It's the Burlington. Okay, thank you. Okay. Council?
I have seen problems at the high school, which are the kind of problems that I imagine you're bound to run into from time to time, with teachers that are behaving in completely inappropriate ways, and honestly need to be removed from the classroom. Kind of a crisis situation, and I'm told that we can't remove that teacher because there's this whole process. We have to put them on paid leave, then we have to bring in another teacher and pay both of them. We don't have the budget to do that. And we're currently in that situation with our guidance director at Burlington High School, and I wonder what is in the budget actually to deal with these kind of unforeseeable circumstances, but crisis situations that are gonna cost the district more money, I mean, where's the slush fund for unanticipated?
Well, first of all, I will be curious to ask the district, this is obviously very alarming if there are more than just one, as you identified, teachers who are behaving in such a way that they should be immediately removed and replaced. And if that's the case, then we really should do that. It makes no sense why we wouldn't. And for budgetary reasons, I can't imagine budget would be an excuse because, for example, this board a few months ago decided that there was a real problem at Flynn Elementary School and Sustainability Academy with lack of resources based on class size and special needs and that sort of thing. So we're actually in the process of remedying that. But anyway, I guess I'd like to know more about that issue, not from you, Joan. I know it's not your job to tell us that, but from somebody if there's a problem. But the short answer is we do have a contingency fund. It's a line item in the budget that's essentially we hope not to spend, but we can use it if we need to. I believe it's $300,000. We've been generating surpluses over the last 3 years, which is kind of a good thing. It means that we're doing and not a wild surplus, but enough that our auditor tells us is within the normal range, that we're not over or under budgeting. But I've been very pleased as a school board member to see that our audit comes back and shows we have a surplus of roughly $1 million on an $85 million budget for the last 3 years. So that tells me that we have a little extra to handle emergencies for sure.
Well, that's good to hear, and I don't want to make it sound like,
it sounds horrible.
Broad problem.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is, and I think the world of the vast majority of teachers my daughter has had through 11 years so far, or 12 years. But in a large organization, there's always going to be a bad apple now and then, or a situation that needs to be dealt with. So
yeah. I don't think we'd be budget constrained if there was an emergency like that.
We have like 5 minutes left. Do you want to switch to the...
3 minutes left.
Oh, well, thank you. No problem, no problem. Does anyone have any more budget-related questions? Yeah, it's a popular topic.
Let's go with Christine.
Sure. So thank you. I'm so pleased to see this because I think it is so important to really make that connection between social emotional learning and academics, and they are totally connected. So I'm so appreciative that we're leaning in this direction. I will ask though, it's kind of a big question and we won't answer it in 3 minutes, but like how do we measure success and hold schools and district administrators accountable to the allocation and strong implementation of these redirected resources? Meaning it's great, like we're going to get a PBS disorder practice person, but how do we know we've just invested all this money, is it working? So I'd like to just see some conversations around that because I know firsthand from where my kids are at school, there hasn't been some effective implementation of these. So again, we're making some shifts and I'm psyched to see it, but like it's one thing to throw money at it, it's another thing to like make sure it's really working.
It's a fabulous question, and that's a lot of like my questions around the coaching model that was put in this year.
Yes.
So the quick answer is the board gets information from the superintendent in the format of reports, structured format, scheduled reports, and those reports are supposed to measure the efficacy of the different programs and strategies. And so we have something called policy governance that describes what reports he has to give us and what cadence and what's in them, and then we give him feedback whether it's enough or not enough and we want to see something different. So that's the short answer.
A slightly longer answer is one metric. We have to ask ourselves, or the district does, what are the metrics by which we're measuring this stuff? One may be referrals to the office. In other words, if the kid has to be sent to the office, that's not a good indicator.
Less evacuations.
How many, right. And so that is absolutely the school district's job to come up with these metrics and run them by the board. Okay.
We're getting yanked, but I do want to.
And he said and.
Before I do want to mention something else. Commissioner Wick has led the negotiations committee, and we reached an agreement with the teachers union, the BEA, and we did this within the last 2 weeks, and comparatively, prior 2 years, those negotiations went all through the summer, and both years led to a strike vote by the teachers, and last year was a strike. And so the board this year said, we absolutely don't want that kind of conflict to be the attention of the district. We want to work collaboratively. And so I think Commissioner Wick and his colleagues in the BEA did a great job, together with less outside assistance, shall we say, and influence, did a great job of coming to an agreement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, well, appreciate that. You can reach out to us. We're on the BSD website anytime, any questions. Thank you for your...
It's the toughest job in the world, being a school board. Believe me.
We got out of here without tomatoes, you know.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Bill. I did get my socks. The job's now worth it.
There you go.
I know this is not the time of year to think about the bike path. Well, sort of
yes,
it
it is.
But if you've done the other side of the city on the bike path, it is absolutely fantastic. I mean, whoa, talk about something you want to be proud of in the city. That's it. How about what's going to happen in the south end of the city? Sydney Way from Burlington Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront.
All right, and John Adams Cole.
And we have a timer. We have a timer right here.
All right, so stay on time. So stay on time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll try to stay on time here. All right, so happy winter. Yes, this is the time to talk about the bike path because you can go out and play on the bike path now. So don't think it's just a summer operation. As I came right in all bundled up today, you can bike out on the bike path at any time. Our crew does an amazing job with the bike path in the winter, starting from the urban reserve all the way to Winooski Bridge. We plow it, but we plow very carefully. So we say, what is it, ski to the east, I believe is the term that we use. Ski to the east. So we leave a lane so that you can actually continue skiing along the waterfront. And it's actually worked out really well. At first people were a little concerned, why are you not plowing the path? But they've realized that the ski tracks actually stayed better because the walkers stayed to the side. So ski to the east, and also enjoyburlington.com, and it's enjoyburlington.com/winter-outdoors. And you can get updates on the bike path between 24 to 48 hours after a storm. We update on we've got it out plowed. And also every Thursday we update our skating rinks. And we have 2 amazing skating rinks down in this end of town thanks to some incredible volunteers at Callahan and at Lakeside. So that's a little bit of winter before we jump into phase 3 of the bike path. Or I should say the Burlington Greenway. Burlington Greenway, aka bike path.
Okay.
And if there's time when we're done, I will be observant. If there's time when we're done, we'll also talk about just some park updates on this end of town. But John's our project manager for the bike path, so he's going to, if that works, if not, we do a paperback.
Website. I don't have the remote, and I haven't used this one before.
Do we know how this input was?
That's just viewing the little computer on there. That's what that's like. If we can just pull up the site that you have.
Oh, they had it on the website.
Yeah, it's on a PDF. I can get our paper copy.
Do the paper copy?
Yeah.
Flash drive or anything like that.
Oh, it's all right.
Look at the paper copy. He's got it in his. But if not, yeah, we get paper copies just in case because we figure technology does not always work.
You should tell me if you're going to get to it first.
Okay, now do that.
I just couldn't get the input to switch.
Yeah, he's gonna do his thing. Oh, mute input. Yep.
That's right.
One more try. Duplicate. Yep.
You told me this was needing some work a couple of months ago. Maybe it didn't happen.
While John's pulling that out, any questions on the skiing, skating, enjoyburlington.com, again, winter-outdoors. Joan?
I haven't actually been there, but I hear that Callahan has a shed by their rink that was
may have a shed, whether it was provided by Parks, I don't have historical information on that, but as I know the shed is
You
also.
might have some shed envy down.
It might have some shed envy. I think the shed is also used for the sport leagues. I don't know. Yeah, I can find out about
The shed
the
at
story.
Callahan was a collaborative project with the neighborhood, and if I remember right, I think
shed
I think we worked on that with Youth Build.
So you're getting a little shed envy, is that what you're saying?
Parks takes and delivers, I think Parks is storing it and then delivering it.
I can find out.
I think it's just,
Yeah,
I thought it just moved off to the side.
The shed gets moved off to the
Side, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, so it doesn't get moved out of the park? So you have to have the spaces. So I have that information. That's good.
You're still
We'll
having
have-
slight shed
we
envy?
will have less shed envy
If it
doesn't
stays there?
actually get removed from the park.
There you go. Shed envy if it goes away.
Okay, sorry about the technical difficulties. I bet in like 2 seconds you're gonna get that.
This wasn't plugged in, so that's a start.
All right, my name is John Adams Collins. I'm a project coordinator with Burlington Parks Recreation Waterfront. I've been managing the bike path project since phase 1B. And now we're on phase 3, and that means the south end. We are at 75% designs for half of phase 3, which we're now calling phase 3A. And we'll bid that next month, and we'll start building it April, early May, depending on when winter ends. So I'm going to walk you through the project from south to north, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes for questions. So some of you may or may not know that the bike path actually starts at the very southern border of the city on Queen City Park Road. Does anyone know that little section? Mm-hmm. Not to demean it, but we refer to it as segment 0. We didn't choose that, but it kind of stuck. And it is in the DPW corridor that will eventually be the parkway. At this point, we're looking at mostly grind and overlay in that section. We're not going to completely rebuild it, except for the last section as you come down to Home Avenue. We are going to lower the grade going into that to make it ADA compliant. Looks like you guys may recognize that it's kind of steep.
I'd be worried if I had a little kid comes rolling out of that.
Yeah. Exactly, and then we become an on-street facility. Home Avenue, Austin Drive into the back entrance of Oak Ledge. Probably you know that section really well. That will get the DPW greenway treatment, and maybe some of you have experienced the greenways in the Old North End that are on-street facilities with the sharrows, etc. And that, thanks to DPW, is almost done. They did the reconstruction of that street, the repaving of the street, and almost finished it before Snowvember began. But they'll go in probably April, early May, and do the overlay with the pavement markings there. And then we are in the heart of Oak Ledge Park, which we will not build that section until a year from this summer. So 2020, that entire section, and then where we're going to pick up this year in April is at Proctor Place in the Lakeside neighborhood. So we are going to build an actual narrow street. Right now you can't tell the difference between the street and the bike path. So to make that safer, we're going to build a narrow street, and then the bike path will be on the street in that section, and then we'll build the path from the bridge to that street. And then it continues as an on-street facility to along Harrison, and then the back side of the houses on in the Lakeside neighborhood through Blodgett, Barge Canal, and then some highlights up in this section. Roundhouse Point will get a pause place. And then when we get to Perkins, we're mostly doing walkway improvements in that area until we know the future of what happens there with the potential for wastewater expansion. So that's kind of the overview.
Do you want to know what is all the construction for this
season?
Yeah, so the construction for the season is the northern part of that project. Starting, like I said, in the lakeside neighborhood with this Proctor Place reconstruction, and then stretching up to Perkins. Yeah.
At Perkins, the walkways, are you talking about out at the very end of the pier?
The outer pier, yeah. They're in very poor condition, and we're going to tear up the asphalt and rebuild them. And then when we do redo the bike path through Perkins, we'll use that as the detour around that site.
What are you going to do with the Blodgett property? Anything?
Well, at this point, the Hula proposal, their site plan that got approved, and we'll be starting construction, I think, somewhat soon. They have a spur bike path that comes out of their between their two buildings along the old Blodgett spur, and will intersect with our bike path. But at this point, that's their project, and ours is the bike path that it will connect to.
Didn't you have the right of way through that property? The city doesn't own that.
See, exactly, and so
Right.
it was an easement, and the easement went with the property. So they, Hula or Lakeside Ovens, however you want to refer to them, that's their easement, and we still have it.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's the impact next summer? What part of the bike path is going to be closed?
From Oak Ledge, we don't exactly know sub-phasing within this, but I think for now we can plan on the section from the Lakeside neighborhood up to Perkins. When we get our bids back and we look at not only pricing but proposals, what we're going to spend in one fiscal year versus the next, we'll look at that and figure out where to divide it. And our engineer basically proposes a detour plan with signage. But essentially sometime during the next construction season from the Lakeside neighborhood or leaving Oak Ledge Park up to Perkins would be closed.
And depending what the prices come in, we might try to get this section done this fiscal year, but it kind of depends on how the prices come in. Just budgeting city funds.
Yeah, we have a question here. Yes.
I have a question, because at Perkins Pier, those walkways flood sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be addressed when they rebuild?
Well, we're going to do sort of a medium-term fix to get the safety improved, but we're not elevating the walkways to make them less prone to flooding. At some point, we may need to look at that entire part of the waterfront and address that from a flooding standpoint. We did replace a small section of seawall at Perkins, and when we did, we set the top at whatever it is, 103.6 or 104, which is sort of the new theoretically flood-proof elevation. But we're not raising elevations out there, so we're just going to replace the asphalt as is. Yeah.
If it's going to be closed this coming summer, are there going to be designated detour signs on Pine Street? Is that what you'll do?
We haven't looked at the details of the detour, but it will likely be Pine Street because of the bike facilities on Pine Street. When we did the northern sections, of course, we used North Avenue, and that was timed such that the facilities on North Avenue were in place for us, but we're not at the point yet where we've totally honed the details on the detour. But that would be the obvious parallel path. Yeah.
So on Perkins Pier, there's a little area that juts out. It's a grassy area where the Lois McClure boat docks.
Exactly.
Is that part of the bike path? That path around there?
It's not part of the bike path. What we are choosing to do there is because of the possibility of further wastewater facility development to deal with runoff into the lake. We don't know exactly where we could put the bike path across Perkins. So we're basically stopping the bike path project at that location and taking the time to upgrade that pathway system that is out exactly where you're talking about.
So we'll stop right where that little playground is?
Yeah, you know when you come to that triangular
Not that far.
planting bed at the corner there by the wastewater
Yeah.
plant.
Yeah.
We're up at a little higher elevation to be a little more flood-proof, and we'll take that grade and match it into the existing path, and then leave the existing path for continuous use until we master plan that site.
But we will be improving the walkways, but it's not the bike path.
Yeah.
Are there improvements in that long stretch by Lodge and so on? I mean, basically, mostly it's the width of it and that hard.
Yeah,
track,
so-
the tracks.
So we are, wherever we can, and we think we have the solution to do it, is going for our standard new width, which is 211.2, 2 gravel shoulders on either side of an 11-foot paved path. So there are a couple spots where we're not totally sure we're going to get it. We do have a solution for the barge canal area, which may be the one that you're thinking about in particular.
Yeah.
And we've been meeting with all the various stakeholders that have an interest in what's going on there, and our solution is a revetment wall which will, further protect and separate what's going on that site from the lake.
And we're getting ready to put the permits in, so we'll find out once we, file the permits if we're approved by the Army Corps or not. But we have been meeting with them.
Yeah.
I have a bike path question that isn't related to the improvement. Do other people want to keep talking about the improvement? Is Parks and Rec thinking about, in the coming term, some kind of regulations about e-bikes on the bike path?
So it's come up with the Parks Commission. We've been looking at that from there. So we're looking at it. We're looking at where that is. Is there issues? Is there not issues? I think the answer is yes. We've been looking at it.
And do you have a sense of what the outcome might be?
Well, I know this is what I can share when and it's not a full, obviously, community input as far as that goes, but when we had an article in the paper that talked about e-bikes, Nancy Kaplan, who's our Parks Commissioner, was the person to receive the input from that. So 80% of the people who provided input based on the article that was in the Free Press were in favor of e-bikes as long as there was some sort of controls, like speed limits or what that is. So 80% of the folks that responded, again, that was not like an official community survey, said that they were in favor of e-bikes. What I've seen out on the path, I ride the path relatively frequently because I live in the New North End and I work on Pine Street, and that's my commute, is I've not run across an issue ever with an e-bike, if I can detect it's an e-bike. Where I more see issues is people who are using the bike path as their training zone on their road bike. And they're just trying to get a workout in, and it's all about their workout as compared to the use of the path as a sort of recreational resource. Or the other one, it was just really challenging, is the people with dogs on leash, and it's an extendable leash, and you're just ringing your bell. Hopefully they were like, oh yeah, that's right, and then they bring the critter in, and then they're tight. That's just from but again, I've only lived in Burlington a little over a year and some, but I'm on there fairly frequently because year-round, I'm on it commuting to work. If anybody ever has questions on that.
I might have another contribution to that one. You're concerned. I was hit by a skateboarder riding along a section of Lakeside, which is a wide street.
Yeah.
The skateboarder flies off the curb and runs right into me. I looked at me, jumped the wall down.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse for that.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And the headphones in is a challenge. Runners that don't see somebody coming and they're, whatever. I think it seems to be more etiquette than the type of who's on it and what they're riding. It's more about etiquette, seems to be.
Kirsten?
So in this section to the south here, are there, like you've done these really nice pause places in the north? Are there places along here where we'll see similar type of
Great
items?
question. Yeah, I mentioned the one at Roundhouse Point, which is right by the wastewater treatment plant. There will be another one associated with Oakledge Park, but that will get built the following year.
And the one at Round Point, just to kind of emphasize, it's not one with fitness station. we were funded for a certain number of fitness stations by University of Vermont Medical Center, an amazing contribution, and we've been putting those in. We've got 2 coming up on the north end, one at Leddy and then one at Star Farm. There will be a fitness station at Oakledge, but the Roundhouse will be more of a kind of a sort of passive, quiet place to just stop, take a rest, enjoy some bench, enjoy the view.
One more, Alicia?
Are detailed plans available so people can focus in on their area of interest on your website or something?
Yeah, I don't know that we have, we just got the 75% and have reviewed those. I can talk to our web manager and make sure those are posted. There is a bike path update page and a project page with other projects going on in the department. And then I think what I didn't get a chance to show at the beginning when Cindy was talking about our updates about skiing, biking, skating on our skating routes is that we have a specific page on our website now that provides updated conditions, and then we also put that out on Facebook. So you know where you can ski on the bike path and what the condition of the ice rinks is.
Okay, well, thank you very, okay, Kirsten, last question.
So because now it's freezing cold out, so I guess ice rinks.
You won't melt, they won't melt this weekend.
So there's one in Callahan Park, there's one at Lakeside, are those the 2 that are in?
On this end, yep, and then we have Battery Park, Star Farm, and Battery, Star Farm, where's the, there's one more out in
That one at the waterfront.
Maybe that's it.
Well,
just the actual arena, yeah. That may be it. Maybe it's Star Farm and Battery.
And the ones in the south end, of course, are great community partnerships and definitely enjoy an avid fan base.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So look forward to it.
Don't forget the snacks. There's still some snacks out here.
Justin?
Are we out of luck with the projector or the monitor?
Anyway, Justin,
what did you bring?
Where's the snowboard? We had a soiree, if you will, about an hour ago. About 25 people showed up at the Burton facility, and Justin put on a presentation. Some of us were there, and not. But we're here now to find out what Burton wants to do, what their plans are, and get some feedback.
This is Parks, right?
Oh, that's not fair.
It was great.
Have the right plug.
Oh,
Yeah, the right plug.
oh, here we go. Good.
And John, you know, probably John Callow has been working with us, so I'm going to ask him to come up here and join me.
And John Callow, familiar face.
Yeah. Here, how about you sit there? I'll slide over here, John. All right. Hi, I'm Justin Worthley. I'm my official title, Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Burton, and I also am lucky enough to work on our facility stuff, so that's why I'm here tonight, sort of in that role. Several of you are familiar faces who were at our meeting that we hosted at Burton earlier this evening, so you're going to hear me say a lot of similar things, so I'm not offended if you want to get up and walk out right now. So you've probably seen some media about some rumblings of what we are up to tonight. I really wanted to share that with you, a little bit of sort of bring you into our facility. So we'll do that through just slides instead of actually being there. So a little bit of background, we've been on Industrial Parkway since 1992. I think we bought 80 Industrial in 91, moved in 92. It was Burton's first move from Manchester, Vermont, up to Burlington. In total, we're now in 2 buildings that you can see here, 152 Industrial Parkway and 80. 80 was the first one, about 150,000 square feet. We have 350 employees that are global headquarters employees, mostly office jobs, but we have some R&D, manufacturing positions as well. The main building we've been in at 80 Industrial was originally Burton Manufacturing Center and our office, sort of global office location. The manufacturing portion shifted over to South Burlington in 96, the old digital building, and then that moved out of that facility in 2010. But our main building has been sort of office and retail for a long time, since 96. And then the building really that I want to talk about tonight, 152, we purchased in 2007.
really from General Dynamics, but there was a short-term intermediate owner, Gilbane Properties. And that was really at a sort of a high moment for Burton and really for the whole action sports industry, 2007. You know, Burton had been growing at a pretty incredible pace at that point, really from the late 80s as a sport. Snowboarding was really growing. Action sports as an industry was really had this explosive run in the early 2000s. And then a lot of things got a lot more difficult in 2008. So when we bought the building, things shifted for our business quickly. And we've sort of done a bunch of things sort of in and out of the building since that time. We've added office space, like we put our R&D facility in there. In 2010, when our manufacturing center left South Burlington, we brought a lot of the equipment back into Burlington. It's now open for public tours. It's called our Craig's Prototype Facility. Amazing factory tour experience, open daily, it's free. Come check it out. We're really proud of it. We make all of our, we do all of our prototyping there. We do a lot of 3D printing as well, so we can actually print binding parts in printers and have them on the mountain on the same day. We can make prototype snowboards. We do about 1,000 production boards a year there. So lots of cool stuff going on. We've added a big showroom, photo studio, our Chill Foundation. I say our, it's really an independent nonprofit. Chill Foundation was started by Jake and Donna Carpenter in the 90s, and it's an amazing program, getting kids in tough situations out to use snowboarding as a way to break through some of their challenges. So they're there. And then in 2014, General Dynamics had been a tenant. We had leased space back to them. They left. They were making these crazy big radar turret stations that sit on top of Navy destroyers.
In that high bay area.
In that big high bay. And so they left in 2014. I think their project moved to Maine, and that's why they vacated. And we also, just this past year, we had about 20 employees in the front portion of the building that we did a renovation in our other building, and they moved out. So we just have about another 5,500 square feet of unused office space now. This gives you the floor plan. If you've been to the facility before, this is north on the top. We have an entrance on this side. We have a walk-up warranty window, so if you ever have a problem with a jacket or any Burton product, bring it there. They'll either fix it or replace it for you. And then this big section here in the center is our Craig's R&D facility. So one of the important points of this plan is we don't want that to go anywhere. That's a critical component of our business and what we really want to maintain. Other portions, this is that office space I was referring to that was occupied until last summer. So right now, just over 5,000 square feet of unused office space. Center of the building, this is our wholesale showroom. If you shop at our store was actually over there this summer temporarily when we were doing some work in our other building. And then this is the space that was John was referring to, which was vacated by General Dynamics. So about just under 12,000 square feet. Really cool industrial space, 40-foot ceilings. I think we've been told we're the second tallest ceiling in the state of Vermont, behind something down in Brattleboro, the grocer down there, grocer distributor. Right. Loading dock. We have, there's a lot of odd things about Jake, but one of them is he's a pack rat. He hoards everything. So in this archive space is actually 3 tiers of all of Burton's history. So we have samples of product going all the way back to 1977. We keep that and we use it for a lot of things. Photo studio back here. And then we have sort of the garage. 13,000 square foot garage. It'd be a nice big garage for any of us. It's storage. We fill it up with junk because we have it, but it's really underutilized. It could be put to much better use. So that sort of gives you an orientation. We also have a small second story in the front of the building. The Chill Foundation is up there, and then again another almost 3,000 square feet of unused space. So a little bit about sort of the chronology from when we moved into when we purchased 152. This is actually an old plan of a design we developed in 2007 when we bought the building that would involve fully occupying 80 industrial, fully occupying 152 industrial, and actually building some buildings in between that would have been like a retail and employee amenity space. We really hoped that would happen, and then from 2008 to 10, that sort of all disappeared between the economic crash, between snowboarding as a sport, the growth sort of leveled out. It's been pretty much flat since then in terms of snowboarding participation globally. Action sports as an industry imploded. Companies like Billabong and Quicksilver are still sort of in disarray from that period of time. There were some really horrible winters. Actually, it didn't snow in California for like 3 years in a row. For us in the US, that's 20 to 25% of our market in the US. Europe had first dry winters really ever historically. It didn't snow in the Alps for a couple of years. Never happened before. Huge impact on our business. So we have done a tremendous amount of sort of regrouping, reorganizing our business since that time, including thinking about what do we do with our facilities. So that whole idea of like we're going to fill up these buildings went away. As we were emerging out of that and General Dynamics moved out in 2014, we worked with a commercial broker to try to find tenants for the space. We really couldn't find anything on the industrial manufacturing side that made any sense, really very few options. So leading up, that really leads up to 2018, we were really sort of stepping back, trying to figure out what the heck are we going to do with this building. We have other problems too. This whole stormwater containment system that surrounds 152 is not functioning the way it was designed. The water is supposed to flow, there's a little containment pond right here. All the water is supposed to flow into that for filtration, and it bypasses that and hits the street. So that building sort of came that way. We've got to spend about $600,000 just in the ground. We're not really going to get anything for it other than better water, which we definitely are invested in doing. The building itself was built, part of it in the 50s, part of it in the 70s. It was thrown up pretty quickly as an industrial building. The infrastructure is very raw. Things like fire alarm panels that need to be replaced, and those are not cheap. As I mentioned, we got a lot of vacant space or underutilized. So really what we want to do is stay anchored there. But we got to solve these problems. We got to make these investments, and to fund sort of 1 and 2 on there, we need some income, because that's really our goal, is that we want to be able to fill the space with tenants that make sense, that will help offset the money that we need to put into the building. We're not looking to make money on this deal. We also re-engaged in 2018 with Lucido. They spent, actually Neil Underville and his team spent 3 months looking and trying to find other manufacturing options to go into the building. So the only idea was another craft brewery, which might be okay, but there's a lot of those in the south end already. There's also wastewater things swirling around that. So we weren't necessarily opposed to it, but wanting to look for maybe some other options. But no traditional manufacturing, certainly nothing like that surfaced. In the meanwhile, I think you all know about the Champlain Parkway. It's very, it's literally right around the corner from our facilities. This is the map from the city site. So Shelburne Road is here, where the site will come down. There's the bike path we were just talking about. It's cool, that might get done next year. And our buildings are here, so right on Home Ave, we're literally right around the corner. So it's got us thinking more with the Parkway coming online about, we love that we'll be more accessible. We love it'll be easier for people to find us. I've lived in Vermont my whole life, and I work at Burton. I've been there for 7 years, and friends of mine still ask me, like, where is it? How do I find it? So we want more people to come see us, so we're excited about that accessibility, that visibility. And it's got us thinking about what could we do with the space that we have. And then some other things going on for our business. So one of them is that for us, we're sort of shifting from, Burton has historically been a very wholesale-oriented business. We sell to dealers who may have multiple brands in their stores, and they're selling to consumers. And we've been investing heavily in shifting, not necessarily getting rid of that, but adding to that more of our own direct business. So selling at Burton stores, selling at Burton.com, So we have a direct connection with consumers, and on that front, we have been developing these hub concepts. And so these are pictures of Munich, Germany, Zurich, Switzerland, Denver, Stockholm, Sweden, the places where we're, these two are up and running in the last year, and those two are planned. They'll be coming online this year, building these sort of more multi-experience, consumer-centered hubs where it's not just about come in and buy a product, but it's build community, engage with our customers in an experience, have meetings and events happening there, bring our mix of both our retail consumers and our wholesale dealers in the same place. That was sort of very taboo at Burton until recently. So, so it's exciting, this vision, and so we were thinking about, okay, how do we bring that to life more in Burlington as our global headquarters right here. We also, my stupid joke I keep telling everyone, I think one of the very few people who still reads the Burlington Free Press every morning, the actual newspaper. And so last spring I read about Higher Ground and their 20th anniversary, and in this article Alex Crothers was saying they're still seeking a better venue. They have some challenges with their current venue. So we had a very early conversation. Hey, do you guys know about our facility? Would you want to come check it out? What do you think? And in an early look at that, there was a lot of interest of like, wow, this could be a really good fit. That big high bay space where General Dynamics is sort of perfectly oriented and positioned to be a great venue. Also another one, read about Talent Skate Park, sort of a local institution that was on Williston Road, had been there for a long time, closed. Really not by their choice, but based on situation with their landlord. And we had this outpouring of people checking in with us because many people know we have extra space of, hey, can you guys, is there anything you can do to host talent potentially? So we started talking with them, we brought them in, we showed them that back closet area of the building that's sort of perfectly situated for an indoor skate park. Lots of interest with them. So we started thinking like, is this possible? Could we put together actually not just these things, but like make this sort of this multi-experience hub, great amenities for the community, for Burton fans and customers that are coming to see us, for our employees. That isn't just one thing, but it's a mix of things that all really complement each other and go together. So this just sort of reiterates some of the things with both, specifically with both talent in the top box on the left and with Higher Ground on the right, how our site works well for them. Specifically, you know, we can make it work, the building would support it. A key point for both is we're in an industrial building, so we would charge sort of industrial commercial rent to both of these tenants. Neither of them can go into sort of Class A modern facilities. Neither of them could ever go, I shouldn't speak for them, but they've said this to me very bluntly, like they can't afford to go into a new building because there's no way they could afford the rent at $15 and up per square foot. So, so that's a key piece that for us, we sort of offer something unique to both of them. So how do we start to figure this out? So this is just a rendering right now. This is not necessarily exactly what it's going to look like, but just to give you a sense of the vision of this idea of a Burton Global Headquarters hub.
No additional square footage of the building. It's just a reskinning, basically.
Right. Maybe we talked about maybe there'd be an entryway that would bump out a little bit, but otherwise the footprint is what it is. We have plenty of space to fit all these things in there. And these would be the things that would go in. So on the left-hand side, the Burton uses our Craig's Prototype Center. Craig's, it's called Craig's because it's named after Craig Kelly, who was a famous snowboarder who was tragically died in an avalanche and was a real innovator. So he did a lot of R&D work with Jake and with the company, so we named it after him. Keep our test and development labs, our warranty center and photo studio. So those would be a little bit behind the curtain, although the prototype center is front and center in our tour. We really want to bring that retail experience and that factory tour to a whole new level. We think that our tour experience should be on par with a lot of the other places that are on top of mind, where we all bring our family and friends when they come in town, whether it's Lake Champlain Chocolates or it's Vermont Teddy Bear, Ben & Jerry's. Like, Burton should be on that list, in our belief. It's that engaging, whether you snowboard or not. And then the partnerships are really important because they sort of make it all work. So Higher Ground, being part of this. We've had discussions with Mad Taco. They're based down in the Mad River Valley. Really interesting company. They've expanded. They have locations in Montpelier and in Essex now. They're vertically integrated. It's a pretty cool model. They got a big farm in Facein where they grow meat. They grow a lot of their vegetables, so we like that idea. Probably we'd love to have some sort of either tap room or distillery there, not a full-on brewery as part of it. We're thinking more about like a food court setup versus one single restaurant. Since this has been a little bit more public, we've actually had a long list of people reach out to us with a lot of interest in this. Local restaurants and brands that we all know and love. It's been pretty cool to hear from them. And then the nonprofit partners, so Chill, and then Talent has become a nonprofit. So as part of their sort of rebirth plan, they actually filed as a 501c3, were approved by the state just recently, and they're working on fundraising basically to come back out. And you know, we've had really good discussions about this. We hope it'll work out. We haven't signed anything with any of these people, so none of this is locked in stone by any means, but hopefully that gives you a sense of like this multi-use mix-up that we're looking to accomplish with the project. So space allocation looks like this. Again, this is not a final plan by any means, but sort of a conceptual idea of Higher Ground. Now this Higher Ground space would be about the same as their current location. If you've been there, they have two rooms, so this would be one room, but about the same sort of capacity. This space right now is our showroom, so we would put our store in here, sort of connecting in with all of this. Have an expanded museum and tour that would connect into our whole R&D facility. This would be sort of that food bar restaurant zone in the front, and more of this connected. So instead of, you know, that's what we're trying to work out right now. Instead of these being sort of separate places, have this be one place, and we're working hard on that sort of concept. And then Talent would occupy this backspace. Somewhere about 2/3 of it is what we're talking to them about. They would actually have a completely separate entrance to the building. We already have a couple of outside skate bowls outside the building, so a nice tie-in with that as well. So that's sort of the conceptual idea that we're working on. And we think, you know, we really think it's aligned with what's in Plan BTD South End. So we've been involved with that planning process closely. We actually think of the themes that are in South End. We really checked the box with this project with 5 of the 7 of them. Creative and vibrant economy, arts and affordability, neighborhood parks and open spaces. There's a lot of things we're talking about with the outside to really make that more of a place to hang out for the community, for our customers, for our employees. Connectivity and mobility. Good connection right after the bike path presentation. We're right there. We're on it. We're actually sort of we're the beginning of it. We're happy to have people come park at Burton and get on the bike path if they're coming in from out of town. And a big stormwater investment we need to make to deal with that sort of mess in the front. So we have a lot left to do. We're really on that first step. We hosted that meeting at Burton today. I've been talking with a lot of neighbors directly. We're happy to continue to do that, to have people come in. We really want people to see the space too and think about what the vision of it could look like. So we don't see this being something we're going to just do once, but ongoing. The zoning piece, so the component that's been a little bit in the news about the zoning is specific around Performing Arts Center. It's a conditional use in the enterprise zone right now, but it's limited to Pine Street and it's limited to 5,000 square feet. So we're talking with the planning commission about that. So that they would need to vote first, then the city council would need to ratify that, so that will be playing out. And we're not going to move forward to sort of lock in any specific partnerships until that makes progress. And then we still have a lot of planning and design. Our full expectation, if the zoning changes, is that this will remain a conditional use. There's 5 extra criteria in a conditional use permit that include traffic, noise, neighborhood character, transportation, I think something about either stormwater or environmental impact. So there's a high bar there that we would have to meet. We have not. I know there's been initial concerns about just traffic impact through neighborhood streets. We have to figure that out. We have not done that work yet in terms of a traffic study. And then construction. So a stormwater parking lot we would do first, then building improvements that we would do to sort of set it up in pieces of the building. And then the tenants would be coming in to fit up their portions of the building. So this is all like best case, 12 to 15 months, probably more like 15 to 24 months that all of this would run its course.
I hear you keep talking about the South End neighborhoods and the South End businesses. What about the South End in South Burlington? I live in Queen City Park. Traffic impacts us very big. We have one way in and we have one way out. We have that one-lane bridge. And that damn connector is going to screw everything up in traffic. It's going to cause more problems than you think, because it's a bad road. There's no pedestrian access across it. If Burlington was serious about this road, they should never have built South Meadow. So how are people going to get anywhere? So have you taken that into account? I think it's kind of exciting that, and some of my other neighbors are too, that you guys do want to try to do some stuff, but that is a big concern for us right now, because I'll tell you, there's been a few times when I've been trying to get to work or trying to get home, and people that are going around Industrial Drive seem to think they're more important than anybody else, and they come across that bridge, and I will make them back up if I have to.
People don't know how there aren't many one-way bridges, especially in cities these days, so I don't think people know how to do it. I mean, we talk...
a very long time. Would you like to know what is originally built in that building when I was a little kid?
Well, I know. I'm just saying there aren't many more of them, so when I'm face-to-face with a 17-year-old teenager on their phone who didn't even look, you know, it's a little sketchy. So we're talking to Public Works about that, not just the bridge, but that road a lot. I think
we do not want the bridge made wider, because it's going to be even more of a safety hazard.
Well, the road itself is a challenge because there's a lot of congestion on it today, as is, between buses, Barrett's trucks, employees coming and going, people biking, people walking dogs, people skateboarding. There's no sidewalks, there's no bike lanes, so we are talking to the city about that on a regular basis. So we need to work on that getting better, for sure.
City of Burlington own that, or South Burlington?
City of Burlington owns all the way across the one-way bridge. I don't know how far up Queen City Park Road, but for a ways there. And we got a line. There's a line down the road. We asked for the line down the middle of the road. So
part of it's South Burlington, part of it's Burlington.
I thought the railroad might own it. That's why I asked the question.
Well, they would have control over the bridge if it was rebuilt.
I don't think nothing would ever happen with the bridge, but I am of the opinion that with the parkway, the bridge will become a lot less of an issue because people come and go on the parkway. So, but we'll have to see.
Except there's no way across the parkway.
Yeah, there is.
No, there isn't.
At Home Ave?
There's one at Dead End Pine Street.
Oh, well, but at Home Ave, there's great.
Why would we go to Home Avenue?
At Home Ave, there's great.
There's great
pedestrian signals.
Well, we're not going to solve that.
Okay, Alicia, let's go. Let's be recognized by the chair, okay? Thank you, Alicia.
Question for you is, have you figured out an idea of how many cars will be parking in those parking lots at peak capacity, and what kind of hours of operation you're talking about?
So, not specifically, no. I mean, all we know right now is it's going to be in terms of the higher ground use, it would be about the same as their current location.
How much? We have no idea how many people go there.
So I don't know the number of cars. They have one stage, they have one room that has capacity around 700 people, and they have one room that has capacity around 300 people, but they have all kinds of numbers on how many cars how many people per car come to shows, and we have to do that work, so.
Justin, what's the capacity of the lot at Burton?
We have just under 500 spaces, so.
And so we're talking about a use that's going to complement, in other words, when Burton employees are leaving, is when evening customers are coming in for the show.
Okay, so the second half of the question is hours of operation.
Yep.
We're used to the buses starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. How late would the noise be going for those of us who live looking straight across at your facility and listening
well,
to
in
it?
terms of noise, I think Higher Ground is as interested in keeping outside noise out as you are in keeping the noise that may be generated inside from
It's
getting
the
out.
facility noise inside, I would expect, would be the building would contain the indoor noise.
Yes, that's correct.
Traffic noise, cars coming and going,
Mm-hmm.
doors slamming, people shouting, car alarms going off.
I lived there for 25 years and listened to, and I was an employee at Burton, all right? I worked there for many years.
Oh.
I saw the good growth time, right? And I'm sorry you're in the situation you are now. But the noise level that occurs when you have your annual sale, you know, it's a problem. The street is plug solid. You can't hardly move in that part of the world. And you're just adding, you know, 3 or 4 more things to it.
Yeah, and this would be all year long, not just one weekend. We've lived with the one weekend.
So we don't, I don't have answers for those questions yet. I mean, that's work we have to do. We definitely have to do.
How can you make a statement like that without having looked at it?
Well, we know we have enough, because we have the 2 facilities that we could make available, because it's complementary use. I mean, it's gonna be evenings, it's gonna be evening shows. They do the shows at night, so.
Midnight?
Talent, I don't think is gonna have any traffic
I mean, it's going to be very similar hours to the hours that they maintain right now, which.
I don't go there. I
Okay,
have no idea
so
what they do.
I think in today's market, I mean, when I've gone to shows there, and I do on occasion, it seems like they're over 11:30 to midnight.
That's late. If somebody's trying to sleep, we go to sleep, we go to sleep for 2 hours.
Wait a minute.
I'd be
Go ahead.
curious.
You have a question or comment?
Yeah, just a comment. I think from a strategic business planning perspective, I commend your creativity and innovation and adaptation, and I think it's extraordinarily creative. I really, really do. As a resident in that area, I just need the business to be able to address serious concerns about noise, traffic, additional alcohol, in an area that is not designed for that kind of commerce. And so I want your business to succeed, and I want you to be innovative. But I think you're going to have to really answer some of those key concerns to address and mitigate the neighborhood concerns.
Well,
You can't be successful.
I totally agree with you, and my understanding, we won't get a permit if we don't. It's in the conditional use criteria, so if this thing proceeds, the zoning vote happens, and, I mean, we're committed to being a good neighbor. I hope people have that perception of Burton. If you don't, tell me, please. I mean, and we'll work on those things.
Go ahead, you have a question.
Yeah, I agree with Dolly, and I've known Justin for a long time, and I know your level of integrity and thinking through a process, and this is the beginning of the discussions for the community. But it's a nightclub, and I think we can't underestimate that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't pretend that it's all going to be fine, because it does create a different vibe in the community in a very residential area. And I do have concerns. I love live music. I want to support the community. I think, some of the sketches that are up there, the renderings are, look fabulous.
Yeah.
But I don't want us to minimize.
Yeah, no,
Minimize noise. It's going to be noisy. It's
Correct.
going to be late. It's going to be 1, 2 in the morning. My son came home from a show at 12 o'clock the other night and was still going. So I don't want us to minimize that in the excitement or passion that you have for this project. And I think,
That's one of the first questions that we brought up with Higher Ground, And we're fortunate in that we're dealing with an operator that's got 20 years of experience.
On Williston Road.
On Williston Road and in Winooski. Williston Road, there's a residential neighborhood directly behind it. And we basically said, our expectation, the city's expectation, is that you're going to be able to demonstrate, you know, your relationship with the neighborhood, you know, and we have to be able to kick the tires and ask those kind of questions in terms of what's the relationship with the South Burlington Police, how many incidents are there, have there been over the past 15 years that they've been on Williston Road.
John,
and they're prepared to do that.
We have a comment, and then go ahead.
Yeah, I was at the other meeting earlier, and we kind of touched on like GMT and them kind of buying into this and providing shuttles and stuff. And for me, that was like kind of necessary. Like, you need to be able to get these people away from the venue when the event is done, so they're not hanging out and kind of creating this noise and kind of meandering in the traffic. Like, and the other thing that I just kind of want to remind people is primarily concerts happen on the weekends. I know this doesn't necessarily make it better, but Fridays and Saturdays are way better than like Mondays and Tuesdays in terms of noise and when it can happen.
GMT's across the street from us. We've talked to them and Rhino and Edland, and so there's no commitment yet, but there's interest in could the bus be used as a service there for sure.
Mojo, you got a comment or question? No? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to recognize some similar sentiments about being a resident of the neighborhood. I really haven't made up my mind if I think this is a positive thing or a bad thing, but my first reaction was, no thank you. I've lived at Red Rocks for 26 years, and so far, you know, the businesses on Industrial Drive have been great neighbors. Occasionally you have events, there's events that are held at Oakwood, sometimes late into the evening, and that is acceptable. I'm not looking forward to something being there several nights a week, even during the week. In the summer, when the windows are open, I hear, you know, the occasional person who leaves, you know, a late shift at Edland, turns up their radio, peels out of the driveway. It's loud. So I can't imagine what dozens of people leaving a venue after drinking and dancing and listening to music is going to be like. I am really concerned about it.
Good. Bill?
I'm hoping the Planning Commission and the City Council will take their time on this and think it through. This is a really interesting part of our city that has some great potential for some redevelopment. But it seems like we come up with proposals and then we react and change the zoning to accommodate it. We're in a building that's part of that. And it's been a good, positive thing. Let's get the parkway built, and then let's talk about what's going to happen with this zone, or not get built. But it's going to get settled. And until that's known, whether it's happening or not happening, what should happen with this zoning district really is up in the air. And it should be a planning process that involves the people and not just a developer coming to the Planning Commission and the City Council and saying, please fix this for us. I think it's creative, it's interesting, but I'm hearing the neighborhood concerns. Believe me, I was part of the neighborhood concerns about what was happening with this building and where the traffic was going to go. And I would have liked to have seen this pause for a year or two to decide what was going to happen with the traffic. If the parkway goes through, you guys might have a great site where people will see you, know you're there, be able to get to you. But what happens there and how it affects the neighbors around it is really, really important.
Go ahead.
Quick on that note, I would just encourage people to go to the Planning Commission and stay involved with the process and, you know, express yourself there too. It's really important.
So just, we care a lot about the neighbors. I live not in the neighborhood specifically. I live right on the other side of Shelburne Road, so it's not that far away. Certainly invested in it. I mean, I guess the thing I'd ask people to be mindful about is just the dynamic in the South End. It's the city, you know, we've had some pressure. We've had actually a lot of pressure from people in the city about, can't you find somebody in manufacturing to go into that space? We've been at that since 2014. We haven't found a solution. We talked to Jim Foster, who owns the Edlin property. He doesn't own the business anymore, but he owns the property. He used to own a big field in between Edlin and Rhino. He had a big for sale sign. He was looking for 10 years for somebody to either do a build-to-suit or sell that property. He couldn't find anybody. He wanted a manufacturing company to come in there. If you add up the square footage between Specialty Filaments that became Dealer.com and the Innovation Center that used to be, I'm not sure exactly General Dynamics and other manufacturing before that, and Blodgett, that manufacturing left that's turning into office space, there's 500,000+ square feet of manufacturing that's left the city of Burlington, and what's replaced it has been mostly office, but some mixed use and lots of other mixed use things. So so there's this pressure that comes of like, well, just do like, there is a notion in the Plan BTV South End, if we want to preserve manufacturing and industry, it's like, how, who? Nobody can afford it. Nobody wants to come in. For our business to stay, we want to do things that make sense, that are complementary for us, that will bring more visibility to what Burton is. We're sort of in this tucked away corner there. We'd like to make that more lively. So those dynamics are real for Burton. And if we can't figure it out, I mean, we can't, I understand how can we find the balance between a process where people can get involved and we can take concerns and work with those and we can keep moving forward. Because we can't not solve this, because if we don't solve this, we can't stay in Burlington. It's just not, it's not going to work.
One and a half last question. 1.5. Go ahead.
So I live in Cape City Park also, which is South Burlington. So does South Burlington have any standing in this process at all, or as neighbors, where do we fit?
You talk to us.
We talk to
I don't know. I actually don't know how that works with the city of Burlington steps.
Yeah, they like to ignore us.
But come talk with us. I'll give you my card. We'll talk to you.
Last half question. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Did you have your hand up at Fed? Yeah. Okay. After that. Okay. Well, we got to be out of here by 9 o'clock. Okay. We'll go to the quarter of, and then really we have a quick exit. Go ahead.
City Market probably wants us out of here before 9. So, but anyway. So Justin, like you, I open the Free Press every morning too, and I said, I was quoted in there, so I seen that. So, because I went to the last Planning Commission meeting, and with someone else that would encourage other people to go to that as well. But first, I want to thank you for coming here and meeting with us all. I want to thank you as well for hosting the meeting earlier on this evening. I think community engagement will be huge, and I've mentioned to you, I think Bill even will say with respect to City Market, whereas they had their initial detractors in this project, they did a ton of work with respect to coming to this group and hosting their own community meetings, and so I would highly encourage you to keep coming back, and I hope I can speak on the rest of my NPA steering committee members when I say, we'll look forward to bringing in the higher ground folks and other individuals along the line to the extent this project moves forward. And just for people in the room who weren't there earlier, I will say that higher ground was there and your other partners were there and provided some interesting information and answered, to a certain extent, or started to answer some of these questions. I really just have sort of a comment, and it's not really for you, Justin, but it piggybacks on some of the other stuff that folks were saying, which is, the first stage that we're at right now is the Planning Commission change, and I think it's important for the folks from the city to remember that the first stage here is really determining whether or not, generally speaking, not just the Burton project, but generally speaking, whether or not this is an appropriate use for this neighborhood. Because one of the concerns that I have is not necessarily just the Burton project, but it's that if zoning is changed for this neighborhood overall, then that means any number of applicants could come forward and apply to use space for the exact same reason. And I understand that there's the conditional use and there's the permitting process, but I still think there's the overarching question as to whether or not this is an appropriate use for this neighborhood. And I don't want to have to the extent other folks are interested in it, keep coming back to have the discussion with respect to every permitting process. If this isn't the only project, it would open the door to potentially new projects. And so So I appreciate you coming forward, and I do think that there's some really interesting parts of this project, and I look forward in taking part in it, but I don't think the burden rests entirely on your shoulders to demonstrate the appropriateness of this. I think the city, and I'll look forward to perhaps having some folks from there come back here as well, that there's still some burden on the city's end to demonstrate, if they move forward on their end, why this is an appropriate use from their perspective.
Good. Yeah, I'm Harris Rowan. I'm on the Planning Commission, and that's why I came tonight to view this. Justin has been to a couple of our meetings already, and I appreciate that, and also appreciate this, getting into the neighborhood too. And it's, in my mind, it's a tough balance because we have this enterprise zone, which we do want to remain kind of a special part of the city and retain its character as much as possible, bumping against the reality of it's hard to get manufacturing to come here. So it's kind of balancing those things. But I wanted to get informed by what people are thinking about this too. So that's why I came. So please come to our meetings. Okay.
Is that it?
They're the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday of every month.
Okay, well, we gotta wrap up. Thanks, everyone. I think it's been a very lively discussion. Thank you so much.